So I'll go back to Andy to start with this one.
Okay. Fashion-wise, anyway, when I first sort of started listening to Metallica, when I got Master of Puppets, and on the back, they just looked that ordinary to me. You see some other rock stars with like spandex on and like all fancy hair and everything, and they just look like four lads who'd walked off the street with like sort of ripped jeans and t-shirts on and stuff. So I really was influenced by them, and I just thought they looked really cool and down to earth. The electro hippies who I went to see very early on when I first started listening to music and stuff made me, when I bought their album and I read the lyrics, they made me realise how much was going on in the world really, that the media wouldn't tell you about like acid rain and things like that, going back to the mid-80s now. But if you read their lyrics today from back in the mid-80s, it's still completely relevant now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was sort of what influenced me. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. Gareth.
Okay, so there's two bands that I would say have influenced me, kind of non-musically as well as musically. I've got all of my CDs right next to me, so this is a good place to be because I can give you some visual aids here, which is brilliant. And then the light will shine off the CD case, so you won't be able to see them. So there was this small movement just before Britpop that was called New Wave of New Wave, and it was kind of vaguely punky bands, but kind of from the arse end of Britain essentially. So this is Welwyn Garden City's Smash. They were a political influence on me. They did a lot of talking about sort of the Tory government at the time. This, by the way, is I Want to Kill Somebody, which is a single that charted and features literally a list of the Tory cabinet at the time that he would like to murder. And if we could have some more songs like that at this stage, that'd be really handy. Because I don't know where
that's quite relevant at the minute, maybe.
Where is this coming from? Not to make a tired political point, but where is this coming from for the current cabinet? But there we go. Maybe us. So they kind of got me into the Anti-Nazi League and kind of paying a bit more attention to more political stuff and kind of news. So there was that. And then there's their sort of the other band in New Wave were These Animal Men. And they didn't really talk about politics or stuff. They talked more about what was happening to them as people, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But basically, this is the cover of their second album, Accident Emergency. I dressed like this for 3 years. It was like the first leather jacket I ever got was one of these really tight affairs. And I was like 7.5 stone when I was 16, 17. It was like a second skin on me. And yeah, I just based any piece of clothing that I was going to look for. I was like, have These Animal Men worn this at some stage? It's also where they had a bit of a sort of a sportswear phase before that. So that's where I got into Gazelle trainers, which I still wear to this day. So there we go. So there's one kind of serious and one kind of more fancy for you, and both from the same time, and nobody remembers them at all. So I backed the wrong horses.
Good stuff. Carl?
To sort of like echo similar to what Gareth is saying about like fashion and clothes and stuff, I think like going back to like the hardcore bands of the 80s, like Minor Threat and Black Flag and the whole like just t-shirt and jeans kind of look, or not dressing punk up, is like dressing it down. I think that was make it more like approachable, not like rock stars on a big massive stage like with glitter and glam and things. Not that there's anything wrong with glitter and glam, you know what I mean, but I think that whole like the DIY kind of idea or ideal of punk was a big influence on me. Is like, if you want to do something, do it yourself. So the bands that sort of were part of that, maybe like Black Flag. I think Black Flag, because they had this kind of like, they did everything themselves. They made their records themselves. They made the tours themselves. They were taking their own sound system on tour at times. Then they started making records for other people. Then they started a record label. So that whole like, if you want to do something, do it yourself. aspect of punk is something that I'm all in favour of, and it's hard, but if you want it, you can do it. And to what level you want it, that you want to do it, it's up to you really, and it's how much you put in as is what you'll get out of it. So I think in terms of like a lifestyle kind of ethos, that kind of like American 1980s hardcore scene movement was kind of something that has a big effect on my life. I mean, saying that, you know, I don't run a record label, I don't, you know, record bands, but I have this kind of like, if I want to go and do something, I'll go and do it if I really want it. So I think that's just like a thing that you can sort of apply to anything really. So I think sort of like the SST, Discord, and the sort of like 1980s hardcore movement was a big sort of influence on my lifestyle.
For me, I think I've got similar in terms of, you know, yeah, again, like Minutemen, SST stuff, and Ian Mackay, you know, that whole idea of, you know, yeah, like DIY, and I think you're right. I think it does kind of go into kind of aspects that are beyond music. I mean, I think it's also the reason why you put on gigs, and you know, it's a part of that whole idea of kind of trying to help out something bigger than just a band. You know, you're trying to support something that's hopefully kind of communal and something that can grow. So I think that's definitely been an influence for me over the times. And I think personal for kind of politics, mine was Propagandhi. I think listening to Let's Talk More Rock was, yeah, like a massive kind of influence on me. Because even though it took me a few years to even become veggie, I think the whole idea of like animal rights and thinking about politics on a global scale, and you know, the fact that my dad worked for Shell, you know, it felt kind of weird, I suppose, that I was listening to these things which were very kind of anti-corporate messages coming through, and I was kind of reaping the benefits of my dad being in a very corporate kind of position, you know, work job wise. But it kind of opens your eyes up to, like, the starting point of opening your eyes up to, like, not kind of pigeonholing people into a particular kind of band, or, you know, treating people differently based on their characteristics, and trying to be as open-minded as possible, of, you know, questioning politics, of questioning, you know, why certain politics or policies are written and approved based on corporate needs, and you know, how that is not just local, it's global. And yeah, that's kind of had a big influence on me over the years.
I think, could I ask you next question? You've just made me think of something, you know.
Yeah.
When I went to see the Electro Hippies in, you know, in the early day in the 80s, it made me realise as well that, you know, when I went to see them, there was like, say, 30 or 40 people there, and that's sort of what made me want it helped me get in a band myself, because I thought you don't have to sell out big 10,000 seater stadiums. You can still be a good band and attract 30 or 40 people and still have an amazing night.
Yeah, and also, like, it's not just that as well, as it's you know, you attract 30 or 40 people, and that has that influence on someone. And it's that, again, that kind of idea of it's slow growth is sometimes the best way of doing things, you know, of actually getting the right message across.
Yeah, I've always said with our bands, if, say, one person comes to see us and goes away and thinks they were great, then that's made my day. You know, and that's made me sort of want to play loads more gigs and everything.
There was something that came from what's the name that I heard about. From I think it was from Henry Rollins. I think I might have even been getting a van, where he was saying about how Chuck Dukowski was the one who said, you know, you play as hard to 2 people as you do to 2,000. It doesn't matter who's in front of you, you play just as hard.
Yeah.
Andy, can I ask, when you saw the Electro Hippies and that sort of morphed into Carcass eventually, what was sort of the reaction to that? Because they're quite different, weren't they? What,
the Electro Hippies and then Carcass, like, sort of still, they were very similar in, like, you know, politics. Carcass, and then obviously years later they sort of went into more death metal territory.
Yeah.
But they were dressed still the same with dreadlocks and like sort of crusty style. I think they just they just come in. But when we used to go and see the Electro Hippies, you'd have like metal bands coming through supporting them anyway. So it was very all mixed anyway. It didn't really matter, sort of. So there was metal bands singing about, Dungeons and Dragons and stuff, but they sort of got along well with the Electro Hippies who were doing like, sort of political, sort of observation lyrics and everything.
Sound
good.
Paul, you can start this one.
I found this one really tough, by the way, and I had to like write it down. So I'm going for a 4-piece. So it's 4-4. So it's the singer, guitar, bass, drums. So I'm going to start with the drums. So I went for Mackie from the Cro-Mags, because he kind of put like a groove into hardcore that you'd listen to like hardcore drummers and it'd be almost like precursor to the blast beat kind of thing, but he put kind of like a bounce into the music, and sort of like you can hear that in a lot of the New York hardcore bands. There's sort of like a groove to it. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it's different, but it's got that to it. On the bass, I went for Rob Wright from No Means No, because I love the bass in No Means No. It's so intricate and catchy, but it's so driving as well. On the guitar, I went for Speedo from Rocket from the Crypt, Hot Snakes, numerous bands. And on the vocals, I went for Henry Rollins just because he is my favourite frontman. I know a lot of people think he's shit, and he was the worst frontman in Black Flag and everything. And he is what he is. We all know that, the world's oldest teenager and that. But for me, he gave that band just sort of like a presence and a sort of like focal point that, yeah, Keith Morris is great, Ron Reyes is great, Des Cadena was great, but Rollins just give it that sort of like, fucking hell, you know what I mean? The power to them. So that would be my my fantasy lineup. But again, that could change. That could change in like the next 10 minutes when other people sort of come up with ones like, oh shit, why didn't I think of them instead? Yeah. But there you go.
Nice, good. Andy?
Okay. Mine's obviously more old school. So I've got Bill Ward from Black Sabbath on drums, like such an amazing drummer. I used to come home many years ago when I was studying at university. I'd been on a night out and I'd come home, put my headphones on, and just listen to Bill Ward. And like he wasn't just like your straightforward like rock drummer. He had loads of like jazz influences and stuff, and I just think he was amazing. On bass and vocals, the one and only Phil Lynott from Thin Lizzy. I just think his voice was amazing, and he was such a talent taken away from us far too soon. Guitar, modernising a little bit, I'd have James Hetfield from Metallica, because from when I very first listened to Master of Puppets, I've loved James Hetfield's tone on his guitar. He's one of them ones that if you heard it anyway, you'd know it was him. And I thought, doubling up on guitar, the one and only Tony Iommi. So yeah.
I knew you were going to have two guitars in there. I knew there was going to be a lead.
So I mean, really, sort of Tony Iommi's more of a lead guitarist, but he's the riff master. And I thought him and James Hetfield together with Phil Lynott singing some sweet vocals and at the back, just I'd pay lots of money to go and see that.
That'd be good.
Nice, good choices. Gareth?
Bear with me. I've gone for a 7-piece. Although to be fair, it's kind of like five core people and then a couple you might.
Scar band, is it?
I hope not. See what you think. So on drums, Mac McNeely from the Jesus Lizard, because the Jesus Lizard are a very loud and abrasive band, and he's a very loud and abrasive drummer. But I've started to notice in recent years just little subtleties that he'll drop in that sort of kind of point the way the song's going. It's me getting pretentious again, but like
he's mega technical.
He's
just a technical drummer,
but with such power as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just such a hard hitter. On the bass, Annie Holland from Elastica. Elastica are another mid-90s sort of British punk influenced band that nobody talks about anymore, probably because they got sued by everybody. But she was just I can't play any of her stuff, quite frankly, and I listen to it on a regular basis, and I'm in awe. It's a good sound as well that they got on that, which I'd love to work out how to do that.
I listened to the first Elastica album today, by the way.
Excellent, yeah. It's got to be done. Got to be done every so often. Guitar. So there's a guitarist called Ryder Size from a band called Nashville Pussy. They're a kind of, well, I don't really know what to call them, sort of redneck style metal, I suppose. But she's from Canada. Not quite sure how she wound up in them, but she's really, really good. And then I thought, obviously, because I want to make life difficult for myself, I'm going to pair her up with a gentleman called Rockin' Inoki Thunderbird, who's the lead guitarist from a Japanese surf band called Jackie and the Cedrics, who I've seen a few times. I've been going since the 50s or 60s. And for a guy his age, he's got the most energy of an onstage performer I've ever seen. They're one of the tightest acts I've ever seen. Although, don't know, might be rubbish if you put him in this band. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, though. And the front person of this will be John Spencer. No explanation necessary, just John Spencer. And then I figured you could probably get Alec Empire to play something. I think it'll probably make it a lot noisier as well. And we'll stick Bowie on synths just so that he's in there. I think the wage bill's the main part of that band. But, there we go. We'll go with that.
That's that would be an interesting sound that would come from them. I think mine would be vocals that have Rose Melberg, who was in Go Sailor and Tiger Trap, and she did some solo stuff, and she also did Knife Pleats fairly recently, Softies. So just really, I've seen her again live a few times, and just amazing, soft, but kind of dynamic vocal range. Just seems to just be able to kind of bring together the sound of any band she's in. I love her vocals. Bass will be Mike Watt, obviously, because he's just kind of a hero. And again, in terms of just the way he plays, he kind of does this thing where he kind of puffs out his cheeks and stuff when he's playing. He's got a very distinctive way of playing. And he calls it the thunder stick as well. So you've got to love that. Guitars, again, this was quite hard just in general with a lot of these. I've a lot of rubbing out and starting again, and this could change at any time, like you said as well. At the moment, I think it would be Nick Reinhardt from Terra Melos as one guitarist. He just, again, Terra Melos is like really technical. He just loves making really weird sound and having like a million pedals that make random weird noises, and but like, again, really technically brilliant guitarist. And Chris Hanna from Propaganda, because I just love his structures. I love the way he kind of writes guitar structures, and again, that kind of melding of like technical and melodic, I think is hard to beat. And then of wild card, I've done a double drums setup. So I've got a double drums, both UK, of Doog from Spy vs Spy and the WoW and Future Adventures. Probably my favourite ever drummer I've seen live. He was just completely unique in terms of the way he played. Really easy to make a focal point of a band, because he's really kind of Keith Moon-esque in the way he moved. And he'd also, when he played with the WoW, he used to drop beats intentionally just to keep them like guessing of what he was going to do, and it sounds like it'd be a complete mess, but it seemed almost like a challenge for them to try and keep up with him as he was doing it. But when he was in Spy vs Spy, he was just completely solid, dead tight. And doubled up with that would be Lou Hammond, who obviously plays with Caves as a front person for Caves, and she was a front person in Flamingo 50, but she played drums for 3 Minute Margin in Liverpool, and she does touring drums for various bands over in America now. And again, in terms of just watching someone play drums who's really tight and technical and just leaves it all out on stage, I always loved watching the way she played drums. So that would be my superstar lineup. Gareth, I think you're first to start.
Okay. It'd just be Nirvana. I was a bit late to the party on that one. And I've seen Foo Fighters. I don't mind Foo Fighters as much as some people seem to, but it's no compensation. Seen them, saw Chris Novoselic play with either the Melvins or Flipper, I can't remember. But never. And Pat Smear, obviously, again with Foo Fighters. It's a shame, but you can't really argue with that. And the weird thing is, anybody else I could have mentioned in this slot, say, kind of 10, 20 years ago, when it seemed like I would never see the Stooges, for instance, and I've seen them 3 times, or I'd never see the Pixies, and I've seen the Pixies. It was like when a band had split up, they were gone. And that's not the case anymore. Like everybody, sorry to keep quoting examples, but Meat Puppets, Jesus Lizard, all these bands I missed the first time round, except the ones where the frontman is dead. And that's the only obstacle to getting back together. So, so there we go. So that's mine.
Yeah, it's a good choice. Carl?
I'd have liked to have seen Black Flag in like 82. In like Starwood or somewhere, I'd have loved to have seen Minor Threat. And Gareth was just saying then about like bands reforming. They're a band that don't want to see reform.
No.
I don't want to see. I mean, I really like Fugazi, and I'd go and watch Fugazi now, but I don't think Minor Threat would work. Do you know one band I'd have really liked to have seen and never got the chance was Queen. I always felt like that. I used to watch them on the telly and they were like massive shows, but I thought the songs were brilliant. So I'd like to have seen Queen, and I never got to see Motorhead. And back to Gareth's point about the frontman being dead, that's not going to happen. So there'd be a couple of bands that I'd like to have seen. Yeah,
thank goodness. Yeah, Andy.
Funny enough, I've actually got Black Flag and Minor Threat down as my two that I would have loved to have seen. I mean, I've seen pictures and like obviously seen videos of Minor Threat and Black Flag in the early days, and the concerts just look absolutely wild. I just would have loved to have been there at that time to see, to be part of it. Also, a bigger band, I never got to. Well, just through like sort of, no, really, just never got around to getting a ticket for them. But Rush, and obviously similar. They're never going to play live again now because Neil Peart's not with us anymore. But I would have loved to have seen them live too. Just listening to Gareth's point before about bands finishing and then getting back together again. It was similar for me with Black Sabbath, because when Ozzy Osbourne left, I mean, I was too young then anyway, but he got back with them, sporadically over the last couple of decades. But then they done a big tour, and I finally got to see them with it was unfortunate that Bill Ward, the little drummer, wasn't there, but the other 3 were there. But I did see Black Sabbath when just Tony Iommi was the only one left in the band, and there was other sort of musicians with him, and it wasn't as good obviously, but I was really pleased to have seen them eventually. Just this tiny little detail of Bill Ward not being there was just slightly disappointing, but yeah, it would have been cool to see Black Flag and Minor Threat in the heyday. And yeah, I think I've seen quite a lot of bands who I wanted to, so there's not many that I didn't get to see. There's still a couple who I haven't seen who I've got to get to see very soon before they sort of start having members dying, and that's ZZ Top and Judas Priest. I've never seen either of them two either.
Yeah.
And they're two bands I've got to go and see before it's too late.
I think mine, again, obviously going to frontman being dead, would again be Minutemen. I mean, I think, again, just in terms of just an influence generally on the way I kind of approach music, but just the way that they kind of set themselves up, you know, with D Boon being really, really trebly and Mike Watt being really, really bassy, so that there was a really distinct sound between the two of them. I think just watch, like, you know, I haven't seen the documentary and seeing live videos of them. They are definitely a unique thing to kind of witness live. Bands that potentially could get back together, I suppose, who I would love to see, hopefully would potentially get back together, would be Yaphet Kotto, who are an Ebullition hardcore band. They had like a really significant impact on me in like the early 2000s, and in terms of getting into kind of that kind of screamy post-hardcore hardcore sound. But the dual vocals of those again the guitars, the way they play off each other, I think is really interesting. And Good Luck, who released a few albums which I think are, again, both of them are kind of near on perfect. And again, potentially they could get back together. It would be good to see them as well.